All right, class, settle in, settle in. Now, I want you to forget everything you think you know about economics. Seriously, we're not here to look at boring charts and graphs today. No, we're here to tell the story of an empire. An empire that has no armies, no legions, no walls, but it holds more power than almost any in history. And it was all built on a simple piece of green paper. So that's the big question, right? That's what we're going to unpack today. How on earth did one country's currency basically conquer the entire globe? How did it become the language of trade, of power, of finance? Well, to understand its rise to power, we've got to go back in time, to a world before its reign even began. I want you to imagine a world with, I don't know, hundreds of different kings, all competing for influence, all making their own rules. That's kind of what the global economy was like before the dollar. It was chaotic, it was unpredictable. Let's just call it the old world. See, before the dollar was king, doing business internationally was a huge gamble. You had all these different currencies, and they were, for lack of a better word, wobbly. Their value could shoot up one day and crash the next, which made any kind of trade incredibly risky. But across the ocean, in this rising power called America, a new contender was emerging. The US dollar wasn't just another coin in the game. It came with a promise of strength and, most importantly, stability. You know, every empire has its origin story, right? A decisive battle, a treaty signed in a fancy hall. Well, for the dollar empire, its coronation, its big moment, didn't come from a conquest. It came from a crisis. After the Second World War, the world was just shattered. The great economies of Europe and Asia were in ruins. Their factories were rubble, their treasuries were empty, and out of all that devastation, one nation was left standing economically strong: the United States. The world desperately needed a stable foundation to rebuild on, and that created a huge power vacuum, just waiting for someone or something to fill it. And so, it happened. In 1944, leaders from 44 different countries all met in this tiny town in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods. They looked at all the chaos of the past, and they made a truly historic decision. They crowned a new king. They all agreed to link their own currencies to the US dollar, which in turn would be linked to gold. And just like that, the dollar empire had officially begun. And this right here, this was the bedrock of the entire empire. We'll call it the Emperor's Golden Promise. See, the US had most of the world's gold stashed away, and it made a guarantee to everyone. You can trade your dollars with us for a fixed amount of real, solid gold, anytime. This wasn't just paper money anymore. It was a promise backed by glittering treasure. And in a broken world, that promise, well, that created an incredible amount of trust. Okay, but how does an empire actually keep its power long after the big coronation party is over? It needs tools, right? It needs systems of control that reinforce its power every single day. So let's take a look at the dollar's tools of the trade. Just look at this number for a second: 90%. That is a staggering figure. That's how much of all international trade is done using US dollars. It's basically an imperial decree that says if you want to play on the world stage, doesn't matter if you're India buying oil or Japan buying computer chips, you have to speak the empire's language. You have to use the dollar. And it goes even deeper than that. It's not just for trade. You've got 88 countries and territories, that's nearly half the world, that are basically official provinces of the empire. They have formally tied or pegged their own money to the dollar. Now, why would they do that? Well, it's a strategic choice. It's like anchoring your small boat to a giant, steady aircraft carrier. It gives you safety, even if it means you give up some of your own control. So the whole thing really rests on these three massive pillars. First, you have the imperial treasury. That's just the US economy itself, the biggest, most innovative in the world. Pillar number two, the oil decree. Now, this is crucial. After some big agreements back in the 70s, the world's most vital resource, oil, is priced and sold almost entirely in dollars. Think about that. If any country wants to buy energy, they have to get dollars first, which creates constant worldwide demand. And third, you've got the global vault. Basically, countries all over the world hold their national savings in dollars because they believe it's the safest place to park their wealth. And this creates a cycle where it's in everyone's best interest to keep the empire strong. But as we know from history class, no empire goes unchallenged. And throughout its long reign, the dollar empire has faced some serious rebellions, major crises, and a few moments where it really looked like the throne might actually topple. This was a huge shock, a massive one. In 1971, President Nixon just shattered the emperor's golden promise. He got on TV and announced the U.S. would no longer exchange dollars for gold. Boom, done. Everyone thought the empire would crumble. I mean, its founding promise was broken. But then, a really funny thing happened. The dollar didn't collapse. It floated free, its value now based purely on trust in the U.S. And somehow, it got even stronger. And then came 2008, the great financial crisis. This money monster was born right in the heart of the empire, in the American housing market, and it spread chaos across the entire globe. Banks failed. Economies were trembling. And you had to think, okay, surely this is the end. This will destroy the world's trust in the dollar for good. But once again, something really strange happened, and it revealed the true, almost paradoxical power of the dollar. As fear gripped the entire world, investors didn't flee from the dollar, they fled to it. Even though the crisis started in America, the dollar was still seen as the ultimate safe harbor, the strongest lighthouse in the storm. Its resilience was, once again, put to the test, and it passed. And that brings us to today. The empire is still standing. In many ways, it's stronger than ever. But the world is changing, and fast, and there are new challengers gathering at the gates, eyeing the throne. You've got new powers rising. China is working hard to promote its currency, the yuan, for global trade. You've got these decentralized crypto wizards casting spells with currencies like Bitcoin. And other huge economies like India are exploring digital versions of their own currencies. The financial map of the world is being redrawn as we speak. And so, we're left with this massive question. History teaches us one thing over and over. No reign is eternal. From the Romans to the British, all empires eventually fade. The dollar empire has proven to be incredibly resilient, but now it's facing new kinds of rivals, both economic and technological. So, what do you think? Is this the one empire that will actually defy history? Or are we living in the twilight years of its rule? That's a question for your generation to answer. Class dismissed.